Hi, everyone. Welcome back to From Pain Point to On Point. I'm Britt, your host, and today I have with me Head of Customer Success at SalesScreen, OJ Christoffersen. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today, OJ.
Thank you for having me, Britt.
I'm
It's a
really
pleasure.
excited.
Me too. I think it'll be great. The topic today is close to my heart and
Yeah.
something I really care about. So I'm happy I was invited here to talk on the topic of structured coaching.
Yeah, yay. I'm so excited. It sounds like a really boring topic when we say structured coaching, but I think it's so important. And I think that it's something that we don't really think about a lot. I think that a lot of managers think about managing their teams and they have their one-on-ones and like maybe their team meetings every week, but the actual like coaching of their teams is not always so top of mind. So from your perspective, I would love to know what you see the differences between just managing your team and coaching your team, and why are you so invested in the coaching element of it?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good question. And I think when you're in the bubble of the day-to-day work, the month and the quarters and your numbers and your deliverables, it's super easy to just focus on the project, the tasks, the goals, the productivity of the team, and have that manager focus on things. And then planning more kind of how to organize everything, how to plan everything, how to ensure that I have control of everything. But yeah, I've experienced that it's easy to forget the developing, the growth, and unlocking the potential, which you have so much possibility to do on a projectual and quarterly basis, and emphasis on the empowerment of the skill development, the personal growth, and all of that things. So I think it's easy to forget. And I've read up on these multiple places that where people don't see growth, don't see personal growth, they'll eventually leave. They'll eventually be unhappy. So I think, yeah, that's where it all, learning more on that was kind of where it all started for me to really put this focus on that. I don't want people to leave because they don't see the growth, because we're too focused on the company development and not the personal development. So that's to me kind of where the focus on coaching for the customer success team started up then.
Nice. Yeah, and I feel like that's been successful for you because we have a lot of customer success managers that have stuck around for a long time at SalesScreen.
Absolutely. I think roughly 4.5 to 5 years is the average tenure of the team that's there today. And I do think the seeing or the feedback that I've received is that not only the challenges with the work that we're doing, naturally it's great working customer success in the B2B SaaS space, but also the personal growth and the skill development and the freedom to find your own solution to tasks and being coached on the way and developed into a more upskilled person is definitely also been a part of why people are staying on in both this customer success team, but also other teams in the company. So I think overall,
Yeah.
the reason why the tenure is higher in sales is due to this personal development that we focus so much on from a leadership and manager position.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think that when you implement coaching into your teams and not just like management, not just doing like the one-on-ones where you hop on and status updates on everything and like, is this task done? Check that off. But like when you actually are invested in the growth of your employees and you are coaching them on how to be autonomous at work, right? And how to also feel accountable for the work that they're doing and get them more invested and engaged. So I think that's so huge. And I feel like it's something that can be a little glossed over at times if you're not a manager that's like really invested in the personal growth of your employees.
Yeah, I agree. And ENPS is a metric that's been very important ever since I stepped into a manager position in sales. There's been a big focus from the top down to ensure that we have a high ENPS. And one of the statistics that's been pulled up multiple times is the importance of having business coaching or personal coaching work growth perspective to increase employee engagement. And I think that's one of the things there as well that we really have focused on.
Yeah, yeah, because it's like you're empowering them, right? Like I think if everything is just like task related and you're just like checking things off, then you don't feel empowered to like make decisions over your business. And I think for customer success specifically, when they're working directly with customers, if they're in calls with customers or something like that, they need to be able to feel confident to make decisions on the fly and make decisions on behalf of their customer or on behalf of the company. And if you're not having real coaching sessions with them, you're not empowering them to feel autonomous and being able to make those decisions.
Yeah, and I think in most customer-facing roles, there is this, as you're saying, on-the-spot decision making. You're in a lot of pressured situation, and self-confidence is very important in those scenarios. And I don't remember the paper I read this in, so the source right now is trust me, bro. But I think it was around 80% of people who receive coaching report that they experience an increase in their self-confidence. So 8 out of 10. And also a key reason to why being on top of the one, not only having business focus on your one-on-ones, but also personal growth and upskill development as a focus in your weekly sessions with the team.
Yeah, absolutely. What impact have you seen specifically on your team since implementing structured coaching? Are there any like glaring success stories that you can think of?
I mean, there's multiple. I think one of the going into key business numbers, one of the things that we have seen is that the areas where we have experienced lack of or where the churn have been higher, as we call them, customer leaving SalesScreen, we measure this quite closely, and then we've seen that some of the graphs have increased over time in reasons to why, and then kind of we've deep dive into a bit of what is actually happening, and we have seen that there are some lack of skills in some key areas, specifically with recent year when the markets have kind of flipped upside down and new things have been important. And by putting focus on that, what we have seen is we've been able to take control over and lowered the churn on those specific churn reasons. So I think that's definitely like an overall success story for me and the team where we've seen this. And also for me personally, both as a rep back in the day, having structured coaching with an experienced manager who were able to help me out and help me develop and build strong skills, help me grow, help me personally and my career. And also now I see having this weekly with the CEO, Sindre, who helps me as a manager on how to do that properly. It's definitely an overarching success, I would say. But we also see individual successes where customer success reps, back to what we talked about with confidence in scenarios where customer success reps come in and they are super happy, or they come in and you can see how they behavior change in certain scenarios after being able to be more confident in how to handle those tough situations that you sometimes are in, and how being more confident in those scenarios turn into better outcomes. So I would definitely say that there's a lot of positives there.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that you mentioned, we all know that sales is a very hard job. Like, there's no question. You're having to like educate people that may not know about your business or know about you or whatever. And then you have to prove the value of what you're trying to sell, and you have to make sure that it's solving their problems. And like all of these things in sales is a very difficult job, right? But I think that CSMs, it's a really unique position. It's a really unique role because it is not just this relationship building and the staying in contact to make sure that they're seeing continuous value and that they're getting the most out of the service that they've bought. But also, CSMs do have to upsell, right? Like they're also tasked with selling. And you mentioned something in your answer about how that can be really difficult, or it can make people feel unsure, especially when markets are changing and that type of stuff. I just had a conversation with Harry and Tom about the insurance industry the other day, and they had mentioned about how in the insurance industry, the retention team, what they call their CSMs, really struggle in times of like market changes to have to continue to upsell. And I just think if you are not a salesperson, if you're coming from something not customer faces and moving into CSMs, you don't have those skills. Like it's a lot to ask of someone who is trying to maintain a relationship, show the value, show new features, show different use cases, all of those things, stay in contact, make sure that the customers are happy. That's a 24-hour job just in and of itself. But then you layer on top this skill of having to then upsell, that's not just a task you can check off in a one-on-one. You know what I mean? Like you have to train, you have to coach, you have to give them the tools to be able to do that and do that to your point with confidence. So I totally agree.
Yeah, and I think what's really good and what we're trying to do today and what I find to be ideal is we do the combination of individual one-on-one coachings from manager to rep and even manager to manager. And then we have the group enablement sessions, which is a way of coaching and way of skill developing, at least from whether we gather the whole revenue team, sales, marketing, and customer success to learn from each other and to upskill each other on areas where one of the departments might have an advantage and then more experience than the others. And then we also have it in the teams. So at least the customer success team would have a segment where we, on the weekly meeting, where we try to spend 20 to 30 minutes discussing and talking about some area of focus where we see that we need to develop, whether that is on multi-threading, upselling skills, negotiations, whether that's most recent years, we have seen that procurement is more involved at renewals. It's not only renewing with the sales manager, but we have professionals on the other end as well, whose job it is to ensure that this renewal happens with as cheap as possible for the customer. And then we need to be able to tackle that as well. So it's been a lot of challenges thrown our way, which I think we have been able to handle well with this combination of coaching. So I would definitely say that from my experience, that this combination works very well, both from a manager perspective, but also from a rep perspective.
Yeah. Walk me through some of the coaching sessions that you do in SalesScreen, which is how you are setting up coaching. We have something called programs. Talk to us about programs and then tell me the type of programs that you typically run for the CSM team.
Yeah, basically the programs, it's the possibility to set up a fixed template for every single session and decide on what data points, either from SalesScreen or external data points, you want to highlight in that session, have easily accessible. And the benefit of setting up this program and having it all in SalesScreen, not only do you have a lot of the key metrics that you're focusing on and your target attainment and your scorecard and everything in the tool already, but it also allows the coach and the coachee to be transparent prior to the session, because both can see what the other have answered, which means that you can prepare, you can align, and you don't have to waste a lot of time in the meeting aligning on what to discuss, and you can go into the meeting with more preparation aligned mindset. A classic example of this can be, if question number one typically will be, is there anything you want to focus on in this session? And then a manager want to focus on quality of calls and conversion from calls to meeting book, while our rep might want to focus on commission plans. And then you go in and then they're so unaligned with what they want to talk about that out of the 1 hour or 45 minutes, 1/3 of it goes to alignment challenges and preparation is minimal. So that's for me one of the best things with it, that I'm able to see what you're saying, whether that's from the manager perspective, as we talked about initially, with task, with project, with challenges, with customer cases, or if it's from the more personal development, coaching, upskilling session. I'm struggling with this. I need to learn more about this. I have these scenarios now where I'm struggling, where I would like to learn more about it or pull in other resources. So it makes me also prepare and also pull in other resources. I'm not the expert in all topics, so it's good to have others as well that I can connect them with and pull in. So that's definitely kind of the benefit of the program. A bit of an anecdote there at the end. And typically we will run in the CS team standard weekly templates, but when we did some hiring at the Q4 2023, we did create some onboarding programs, because it doesn't make sense to enroll seasoned CSMs together with new hires in the same program as the same question. It's more important to follow up on other subjects, which is something we see with customers of ours who use SalesScreen as well, that some of them who have higher turnaround or are ramping up very significantly, they tend to do dedicated onboarding programs just so they can be more on top of the challenges that new hires have, which is important to stay on top of. They have dedicated coaches that might specialize within certain topics that's more important for new hires, and they're able to make sure that they are upskilled and even add them to other programs as well during onboarding as they see fit, where they see challenges occur and needed. So that's a good use case. And then you can have the more regular one with the more seasoned. And then if you launch a new product or you have a focus area and you see that, okay, we have 5-6 people who struggle with their conversion rate from calls to meeting, you can create a dedicated program for them, assign a coach there, and then they can be assigned tasks as well. So share 5 recordings with the coach before the next session so they can listen to, and then they can go through them, what was said, what should you have done differently according to the coach, and talk through it together to ensure structured and quick upskilling where needed. So that's the structure and the benefit of the different programs, that you have the possibility to include people also from different teams into different programs and run them and have it structured in SalesScreen, where you can go back and look at what had been discussed, what was the actions done for this meeting, this coaching session, and then follow up on that to ensure that you maintain a healthy progress in development and coaching.
It's such a good point, OJ, and I've never thought about it sooner, but the idea of having, I feel so dumb even saying this, but the idea of having different coaches coming in to coach your team on different areas. I think, like, I was thinking this way, so I'm sure other people think this way, that it's like, oh, I have to coach, I'm their manager, I have to be the one coaching and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, you have SMEs across your entire company. Like, why would you be the person that's going to coach them on how to sell a product when you could bring in the product manager that owns it and have them talk to the value and the benefit and the use cases with the team? Or, for the upselling example, if your team is now tasked with having to upsell on something, have the sales leader come in and give coaching on, this is how I would speak to this is how I would handle the objections. It makes so much sense. And you talked a little bit about having the template and having those questions and tasks and stuff like that available to the coach and to the coachee prior to the session. I think it's so great because we always talk about how you need an agenda in a meeting in order to get anything done. And that's true. But I think what you brought up was such a good point of, like, if I can see what my CSM that I'm going to meet with wants to speak about, and maybe it is a question on commission, maybe it is a question on a new feature that we're releasing, maybe it is a question on structure changes within the company, whatever the case is, you have the ability as their manager to go and find those answers prior to the call. And I feel like what we see a lot of the times is that you get into a one-on-one, you both come, you both have things that you want to talk about, and then people walk away with, like, okay, well, now I have these, like, X, Y, and Z's that I have to go and do. And maybe the manager is really on top of it and they can get back to their CSM with the answers, like, immediately, same day. But what typically happens is those things kind of drop, right? And so maybe they don't get those answers. And I think having all of the information ahead of time so that you can come into the coaching session and have it be really, like, honed in is so important.
Yeah, I agree. And it's made a difference for me. I think time saved, having it structured, if you measure it in that way, it's naturally tough to measure always the effect, the value, all of these things, but the time saved on not having to follow up on a lot of things afterwards and being able to resolve things in the meeting. I mean, it can be everything from simple thing, but I mean, it's a business. Sometimes there are conflicts, whether between people or with customers or one way or another, and being able to know what's about to hit you when you go into the meeting and be able to look at it and gather information prior to it have definitely helped, no matter how big or small of a challenge it is. And naturally the same goes for the upskilling. It's easy for a manager to assume what people want to talk about, what they want to develop on, and it's also easy, I've been there from a rep, to think that you master something that you might not be as good as you think. If you don't know, look at the data, or when you look at the data, realize I'm not that good at it. It's easy to ignore, and then it's good to be able to know in advance if you want to do a quick enablement session. It can be longer programs that go over weeks, but it can sometimes just be, hey, I looked at this recording, or per the discussion with this customer, how do you feel it went? And then kind of start it from there, and then just by having it as a subject on the agenda, it can be something that will trigger the thought process, help people develop it to better resolution the next time in just a quick session. So,
And also the inverse too, right? I think I'm the type of person that always feels like I'm failing, like no matter what. I'm always like, that wasn't good enough. That sucked. That wasn't good enough. Nobody liked it. It like just take me out back like old Yeller. So in the inverse of that example, it is also really great to be able to listen to a customer call or something and be like, hey, I just want to let you know I listened to this and here are all of the things that I think that you rocked at. Like, this is a great example of this. And I think that's so important because coaching is not just let me find the areas of improvement. It's also let me find the areas in which you really excel. And how do I fortify that even more? How do I make you feel really confident about the things that you're really good at so that you can lean more on those skills while we also have to like work on maybe some other things that could get better. And I feel that approach to management, that approach to coaching is so valuable to your team because it helps build this trust. It helps build trust and it helps your team feel like you truly are on their side. You are there for their growth and their success. And to your point earlier about retention, people wanting to feel like they're valued at their company and all of these things, like this is the number one way that you would be able to do that. And you're automatically going to have better retention and have better engagement if you have people that are coming in and like really supporting you in a real way and not just in like the task management way.
yeah, and I agree. From my experience, when both sides of the table, when you manage to build up a culture where it's good to develop, it's good to upskill, and it's valuable, things also turn a bit around. Have more and more examples now happening that the CSM send me snippets and say, I wasn't really happy with the outcome of this conversation. Can you look at these 5 minutes prior to our next one-on-one and let me know if you have any feedback? Should I done then something differently? And again, I can share that with others who might be subject matter experts, if it's objection handling or how we compare to our competitors. Just two recent examples. I think that's also beneficial that you build that strong culture in the team and in the company, that it's good to develop. It's not only the manager who sits there sneak listening to recordings or joining meetings and saying, hey, I listened to this call, here's what you should have done, read up on it, and then do better. But it's more collaboration, and it makes it easier for me to also share some snippets with the team. It goes both ways. Sometimes I'm in customer situations where like, hey, what do you guys think? What do you have done differently? And we spend the CS meetings talking about, I would have done that, I would have done that. And then we do some team enabling. So I think it's a really important side effect of having this in place.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I worked at one of my first big girl jobs, I worked at this company called Innovid, shout out Innovid. I had a manager there named Jen Whalen, who is absolutely incredible. I've been so blessed to have really wonderful managers throughout my career, like really, truly blessed. I've had such great managers throughout my career, but Jen definitely was a person who was able to see my strengths and really wanted to tap into them. And one of the things that she said to me all of the time, whenever we were having our like coaching sessions and whatnot, was feedback is a gift. And I say that here, even now, I've kept that mentality and that thought process even now. And I will say that on calls, I will say that on trainings, I will say that in Slack messages. Feedback is such a gift. And the reason why is exactly what you said, because it fosters collaboration. If you can take feedback, if you can think about feedback as somebody being invested in your success and wanting you to do better, then that becomes a collaborative effort. And so I love that like the CSMs feel comfortable enough to be here, watch this video of me on this customer call and tell me what you think, because I think I could have done better. But I also love the other way sharing of your calls and areas where maybe you feel like you could get some feedback too and have this really collaborative culture on your team that makes it removes the scary aspect of receiving feedback. I think that we're so programmed, and this I think specifically in America, but we're so programmed to believe that feedback is always negative, that feedback, even any type of feedback, is negative. And the truth is that feedback is never negative. Feedback is always a gift. You just have to look at it like it's a gift. If you can take it and you feel like you have a collaborative enough relationship with your manager, then your growth is kind of unlimited, which is so awesome.
Yeah,
I
I
love
agree.
coaching.
It's about sometimes also taking it professional and not personal,
Mm,
taking it for what it is, and then
a
not
hundred
looking at it
percent.
as something that you as a person should do better. But I think it's important to also build a culture where we want to perform well, we want the retention to be as high as possible, and we need to tread out of the comfort zone. We need to allow to play with open cards and have that direct communication, and then at the end of the day still be able to sit down and be good colleagues and peers.
Well, yeah, to your point of like being honest with what the skill set is, right? Because the truth is that you don't know what you don't know if you've never done a job. If you were a CSM and you've never had to upsell a product before, how would anybody expect you to know how to do that and do that successfully? That's upselling is a skill. There's also the feeling of like when you have coaching and you have a collaborative relationship and you have like the safe space, if you will, to get feedback that may not be wholly positive, you're able to see that for what that is, which is just, I need an improvement of this skill that I don't have. And that's not an indictment of who I am as a person or like my ability to do my job well. It's just, now I have to do this up. Now I've got to add another tool to my toolbox.
Absolutely. So I think it's definitely aligns with my thoughts on it and my vision for it.
Yeah. All right. Last question. I feel like this is a little bit of a throwaway question for you, OJ, because I don't know. I'm convinced. Let's start a coaching program right now, me and you. What would you say to other team leads that are maybe hesitant to introduce structured coaching or feel like their typical standard one-on-one check-ins with their teams is enough?
I would say it's well worth the investment. That's probably kind of the headliner. I think
Hmm.
for me, sometimes it gets a mix. I'm not perfect either. Sometimes it's a lot of focus on manager stuff and less personal development. It happens. I guess it's unavoidable, but it's well worth. So every single Tuesday of my day is basically from 9 to 4:30. It's just back to back with coaching sessions, and some of them more focused on development and upskilling, and some are more focusing on driving projects and helping putting out fires, which we happen to do a lot. But I would definitely say it's well worth the investment. It's a beneficial thing to have, both for what it does with your culture, but also how it helps drive your team and people. We definitely, as a team, has grown on coaching, and I would also say that you don't have to know everything. Sorry, you have to know something, but not everything. That it's probably the biggest resolution for me was realizing that I can just pull in others who are needed. We have sales manager, even not even managers. We have sellers, account managers, account executives are out in the field meeting competitors every single day. They have much more knowledge on objection handling or
Hmm.
how we compare to them than what I have. And
Yeah.
and being able to utilize that, being able to utilize other skills that you mentioned, subject matter expert earlier. It's something we have in a lot of fields, and being able to utilize those as well to bring them into your meeting, whether that's one-on-one or a group session, is definitely something that I'd recommend on doing. And I think doing this has a lot of great collateral out there. I didn't know what I was doing when I started. I just handed over something from my former manager who said, we're going to do this. Now you're in charge.
Yeah.
And it's so much great collateral out there, and it doesn't have to be revolutionary. That's probably the biggest thing besides it's worth the investment. It doesn't have to be revolutionized. Not every session need to be super valuable.
Yeah.
And not everything has to be about instant growth or long-term growth or development. Sometimes it's periods where other things drag the focus away, and sometimes it's stuff that takes time to handle, or you try something and it didn't really work out. But I think just like your first podcast will be bad, your first piece of content on the internet will be bad, your first article will
Yeah.
be bad, as like it'll be the same there. I've had a few hundred sessions now and it's starting to be better. So I think that's also
Good.
something to just get started. It's worth the investments, both instantly but also eventually. So
Yeah.
yeah, over time. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love instantly and also eventually. All right, awesome. Well, this was great. Thank you so much, OJ. I really enjoyed chatting with you and getting your insights on coaching. This was super fun.
Thank you for having me on there, Britt.